For 5 long years, he ruled with ice in his heart, keeping everyone away after losing the only woman he ever loved. Until one night, a wounded stranger stumbled into his lands, carrying a secret powerful enough to shatter his throne or awaken his soul. The silver necklace burned against Serena's palm like molten metal, yet she couldn't release it. Hidden beneath decades of dust in her grandmother's attic, the artifact pulsed with an energy that made her entire body tremble. Everything she believed about her life crumbled in that instant, the weight of 18 years of lies pressing down on her chest until she could barely breathe. She had climbed those creaking stairs, searching for old veterinary textbooks, anything to help with the injured wolf pup someone had brought to her clinic that morning. Instead, she found this. The necklace bore intricate engravings that seemed to shift in the dim light, symbols that felt familiar despite her certainty she had never seen them before. The moment her fingers closed around it, visions flashed behind her eyelids. A woman with her same dark hair running through moonlit forests, silver eyes gleaming with inhuman intensity, calling her name in a voice that made her soul ache with recognition. Serena. The voice echoed in her memory, soft and desperate. "My little one, remember who you are." But Serena couldn't remember. She had been raised by her grandmother after her parents died in a car accident when she was 3. At least, that was the story she had always been told. Now, staring at this necklace that seemed to recognize her touch, she wondered what other lies had shaped her existence. The attic felt smaller suddenly, the air thick and oppressive. She stumbled toward the narrow window, clutching the necklace against her chest. Outside, the ancient forests of her mountain homeland stretched endlessly, their secrets buried beneath layers of pine needles and morning mist. She had always felt drawn to those woods, spending her childhood exploring paths that seemed to appear only when she needed them most. Other children found her strange, the way she could calm wild animals with a touch, the way she seemed to know things about the forest that even the oldest villagers had forgotten. Her grandmother had always discouraged such interests. "Stay close to home, child," she would say, her weathered hands gripping Serena's shoulders with desperate strength. "The woods are no place for girls like you. There are things out there that would hurt you, claim you, change you into something you were never meant to be." But standing in that dusty attic, silver burning against her skin, Serena began to understand that perhaps she was already something she had never been allowed to become. The first sign appeared that very night. She had tried to sleep, tried to push the visions away, but the necklace called to her from where she had hidden it beneath her pillow. When she finally surrendered and clasped it around her neck, the world exploded into sharp focus. Every sound became crystal clear. She could hear her grandmother's labored breathing 3 rooms away, could distinguish between the footsteps of different animals moving through the forest, could even detect the subtle shift in air pressure that meant rain was coming hours before the first clouds appeared. Her reflection in the bedroom mirror made her gasp. Her brown eyes held flecks of silver that hadn't been there before, and her skin seemed to glow with an inner light. She looked like herself, but more, as if a layer of dulling film had been stripped away, revealing something wild and magnificent beneath. The changes accelerated over the following weeks. Animals that should have fled from human contact approached her without fear. The injured wolf pup she had been treating healed with impossible speed after she touched its wounds. Most disturbing of all, she began having dreams of running through the forest on 4 legs, her human thoughts blending with instincts that felt ancient and primal. She tried to confide in her grandmother, but the old woman's reaction was swift and terrifying. "You will remove that cursed thing immediately," she commanded, her voice shaking with fear and fury. "Your mother wore something like that, and look what happened to her. Do you want to end up the same way?" "What happened to my mother?" Serena demanded, but her grandmother turned away, muttering prayers under her breath. It was then that Marcus Thorne entered her life, like a storm breaking over calm waters. The leader of their small mountain community had always been a figure of respect and authority, his word carrying weight in all local matters. He was handsome in a classical way, with steel grey hair and penetrating blue eyes that seemed to see through any deception. When he appeared at her veterinary clinic 3 weeks after her discovery of the necklace, she knew immediately that her secret was no longer safe. "Miss Elena," he said, using her surname with formal distance despite having known her since childhood, "I think we need to discuss some concerning changes that have been reported in your behavior." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" He moved closer, his presence filling the small examination room. "Animals following you home from the forest, wounds healing without proper medical intervention. And then there are the sightings." "Sightings?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "A young woman running through the woods at night, moving faster than any human should be able to move, always during the full moon." His eyes fixed on the silver chain barely visible beneath her collar. "Always wearing something that catches the moonlight." Serena's mouth went dry. She had no memory of leaving her house during those nights, but she woke each morning with dirt beneath her fingernails and the taste of wild air in her lungs. "I don't know what you're talking about," she lied, but even to her own ears, the denial sounded weak. Marcus stepped closer still, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixed with something else, something wild and dangerous that made her newly awakened instincts scream warnings. "Your bloodline carries responsibilities, Serena. Dangerous ones that were supposed to be buried with your mother. But clearly, some things refused to stay dead." The casual way he mentioned her mother made her world tilt. "You knew my mother? I knew what she was, what she became, what she threatened to unleash on this community." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And I made sure it never happened again." The implication hit her like a physical blow. "You killed her. I protected everyone, including you." He reached toward the chain around her neck, but she jerked backward, her body moving with inhuman speed. His eyes flashed with something that might have been satisfaction. "Just as I will continue to protect this community from the chaos that bloodlines like yours inevitably bring." That night, Serena couldn't bear to stay in her grandmother's house, couldn't look at the woman who had lied to her for 18 years. She ran to the forest, the necklace hot against her throat, her thoughts a whirlwind of betrayal and awakening. The trees seemed to part before her, creating a path she had never noticed before, leading deeper into the wilderness than she had ever ventured. She found the clearing just as the moon reached its peak. Ancient stones formed a perfect circle, their surfaces carved with the same symbols that decorated her necklace. The moment she stepped inside, the world shifted again. The silver pendant flared with brilliant light, and suddenly she wasn't alone. Other figures emerged from the shadows between the trees. Young people like herself, all wearing similar silver ornaments, all moving with the same fluid grace that she was still learning to control. Their eyes held the same silver flecks that had appeared in her own, and their faces showed the same mixture of fear and exhilaration that she felt. "You've awakened," said a young man with dark hair and kind eyes. "We've been waiting for you, Serena Elena." "How do you know my name?" "Because your mother was our alpha before Marcus Thorne murdered her." The words came from a girl with flame-red hair and fury in her silver-flecked gaze. "Because your bloodline carries the power to lead us back to what we were meant to be." "I don't understand any of this," Serena whispered. But even as she spoke the words, part of her did understand. The part that had always felt out of place in human society, the part that came alive in the forest, the part that had been calling to these people long before she knew they existed. "You will," the young man promised. "My name is Adrian. We are your pack, Serena, your true family. And Marcus Thorne has declared war on all of us." As if summoned by his name, the sound of approaching vehicles echoed through the forest. Headlights cut through the darkness, and Serena could hear Marcus's voice shouting orders. They had been discovered. "Run!" Adrian commanded, his voice carrying an authority that made her instincts respond immediately. "The old laws still protect us in the deep forest, but not here. Not anymore." Serena hesitated for one crucial second, looking back toward the lights and voices of the world she had always known. Her grandmother would be worried. Her veterinary practice needed her. The life she had built, limited as it was, still meant something. But then silver blazed around her neck. Visions of her mother's final moments flashed behind her eyes, and she understood that some choices carved themselves into destiny with no possibility of return. She ran into the darkness with her newly discovered pack, leaving behind everything she thought she was, racing toward a truth that would either liberate her or destroy everything she had ever loved. The hunt began that night, and Marcus Thorne would not stop until every last member of her bloodline was buried alongside her mother. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that some powers grow stronger when they are pursued, and some destinies refuse to be buried no matter how deep you dig the grave. Behind them, the ancient stones continued to pulse with silver light, and the forest itself seemed to whisper promises of protection to those who remembered its oldest laws. The awakening had begun, and there would be no going back for any of them. As they disappeared into the wilderness that had always been their true home, Serena felt the last of her human certainties fall away like shed skin. Whatever she was becoming, whatever her mother had died to protect, whatever Marcus Thorne feared enough to kill for, all of that lay ahead of her in the darkness, waiting to be claimed. The silver necklace burned against her throat like a brand, marking her as something that belonged neither fully to the human world nor entirely to the wild. She was caught between two natures, two destinies, two kinds of love and loyalty that might ultimately prove impossible to reconcile. But for now, she ran with her pack through moonlit forests, her bare feet finding purchase on paths that existed only for those who carried the old blood. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly alive. Whatever came next, whatever price her awakening would demand, she would face it as her mother's daughter, as the keeper of powers that had been sleeping far too long. The last resistance of her wild heart had finally begun. 3 months had passed since Serena's first transformation under the full moon, and the deep forest had become both sanctuary and prison. The abandoned ranger station where Adrian's pack had made their temporary home offered protection from Marcus Thorne's increasingly aggressive patrols, but every day brought new evidence that their time was running out. Serena stood at the cracked window, watching frost form delicate patterns on the glass as winter settled over the mountains. Her reflection stared back with eyes that held more silver than brown now, and she could feel the wildness growing stronger with each passing day. The veterinary skills that had once defined her identity seemed like memories from another person's life. Now her hands could sense injury and illness through touch alone, could channel healing energy that defied every medical principle she had ever learned. "You're thinking about going back," Adrian said from behind her. His voice carried the quiet authority that had kept their small group together through weeks of hiding. But Serena could hear the concern beneath his calm exterior. She didn't turn around. "My grandmother is dying. I can feel it from here." Marcus Thorne's influence, no doubt. He's been questioning everyone who ever had contact with you, pressuring them to reveal anything that might lead him to us. Adrian moved to stand beside her, his warmth a comfort against the winter chill. "Going back would be suicide. Maybe. Or maybe it's time to stop running." Serena finally faced him, noting how the harsh conditions of forest life had sharpened his already striking features. Dark stubble covered his jaw, and his clothes bore the wear of months spent moving through wilderness. But his eyes still held the same steady strength that had first drawn her to trust him. "There are others like us in the village. I can sense them now, their gifts suppressed but not eliminated. What happens to them when Marcus realizes they carry the bloodline too?" Before Adrian could answer, Elena burst through the station's makeshift door, her red hair wild with urgency. "We have a problem. A big one." The young woman who had become Serena's closest friend among the pack rarely showed fear, but now her face was pale with it. Behind her came David and Marcus, not their enemy Marcus Thorne, but the quiet young man who shared an unfortunate name with their persecutor. The other pack members looked exhausted and worried. "What is it?" Adrian demanded. "Hunters," Elena gasped, still catching her breath. "Not Thorne's people. Real hunters, professional ones with silver weapons and knowledge of the old ways. They're setting up camps around the entire forest perimeter." Serena's blood chilled. She had heard whispers of such people from her mother's memories that sometimes surfaced during her transformations. Mercenaries who specialized in tracking supernatural bloodlines, equipped with weapons and techniques designed specifically to kill their kind. If Marcus Thorne had hired outside help, their situation had become exponentially more dangerous. "How many?" Adrian's voice remained steady, but Serena could see the tension in his shoulders. "At least 20 that we could count," David replied. "Maybe more. They have vehicles, communication equipment, and enough silver ammunition to arm a small army." "There's something else," Elena added, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "They have someone with them, someone who knows about us. I caught a scent that felt familiar, but wrong somehow, like one of us, but corrupted." The implications hit Serena like a physical blow. Someone from their world had betrayed them, had aligned with those who sought their destruction. The possibility that one of their own kind could work with hunters made her stomach turn with revulsion and fear. "We need to leave the forest," she said quietly. "Tonight." "And go where?" Adrian challenged. "This wilderness is the only protection we have. The old laws that keep us safe don't extend beyond these boundaries." "The old laws didn't keep my mother safe," Serena replied with bitter truth. "And they won't keep us safe if we're surrounded by people who know exactly how to break them." A tense silence fell over the group. They all knew she was right, but acknowledging it meant accepting that their desperate situation had become hopeless. The forest that had been their refuge was becoming their trap. It was then that the stranger appeared. None of them heard him approach, which should have been impossible given their enhanced senses. One moment they were alone in their circle of despair. The next, a figure stood in the doorway as if he had materialized from shadow itself. Tall and broad-shouldered, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes the color of storm clouds, he carried himself with a confidence that suggested he feared nothing in their world or any other. Every instinct Serena possessed screamed danger, but beneath the alarm was something else, a recognition that went deeper than sight or sound. This man felt like family in a way that even her pack didn't, like blood calling to blood across generations. "Uncle?" The word escaped her lips before conscious thought could stop it, and she saw shock ripple across the stranger's features before his expression settled back into careful neutrality. "Hello, Serena," he said, his voice carrying an accent she couldn't place, but that sounded like home in ways she didn't understand. "My name is Damien Blackthorne. I was your mother's brother." The revelation hit like lightning. Her mother had had family, had people who might have protected her, might have prevented her death. All these years, she had believed herself alone in the world, except for her grandmother's reluctant care, never knowing that somewhere beyond the mountains, someone shared her blood and her gifts. "Where were you?" The question came out raw, with 18 years of accumulated pain. "Where were you when she needed you? When I needed you?" Damien's jaw tightened, and she saw genuine anguish flash across his weathered features. "Imprisoned. Bound by silver chains in a cell designed specifically to hold our kind, courtesy of the same organization that has now sent hunters to finish what they started with your mother." "What organization?" Adrian stepped protectively closer to Serena, but she could see he was as confused as she was. "The Covenant of the Silver Dawn," Damien replied, his voice heavy with old hatred. A secret society that has existed for centuries, dedicated to the elimination of supernatural bloodlines from the world. They consider us abominations, threats to human purity that must be cleansed from existence. Elena made a sound of disgust. Marcus Thorne is part of this group. Marcus Thorne is a useful fool who thinks he's protecting his community from monsters, Damien said dismissively. The Covenant allows him to believe his actions are local and justified, while they use his resources and knowledge for their larger purpose. He has no idea he's helping to commit genocide. Serena felt the pieces of her life's puzzle clicking into place with sickening clarity. Her mother's death hadn't been the result of local prejudice and fear. It had been part of a coordinated campaign of extermination that spanned generations. Every person like her who had died, every family that had been destroyed, every child left orphaned and ignorant of their heritage, all of it was connected to this shadowy organization that saw their very existence as an affront to be erased. "How did you escape?" she asked. "I didn't. They released me." Damien's smile held no warmth. 3 weeks ago, after 18 years of captivity, they simply opened my cell and told me I was free to go. They even provided me with transportation and resources to reach you. The trap was so obvious that Serena felt insulted by its crudeness. They want you to lead them to us, obviously, but they made one crucial error in their calculation. His storm-grey eyes met hers, and she saw her own silver flecks reflected in their depths. They assumed I would be grateful enough for freedom that I would betray my own family. They didn't account for 18 years of planning revenge. What kind of revenge? Adrian's voice carried skepticism mixed with desperate hope. Damien reached into his coat and withdrew a silver pendant similar to Serena's necklace, but larger and more intricately carved. The moment it came into view, her own jewelry began to resonate with harmonic vibrations that made her bones ache with recognition. This belonged to your grandmother, Serena. Your mother's mother, not the woman who raised you after the murders. He held the pendant toward her, and she could feel power radiating from it in waves. It contains the collected knowledge and strength of 7 generations of our line. Everything you need to not just survive the Covenant's hunters, but to turn the tables on them. She reached for the pendant with trembling fingers, but Adrian caught her wrist. This is too convenient, too perfect. Why would they let you keep something so powerful? Because they don't know what it is, Damien replied with grim satisfaction. To them, it's just another piece of silver jewelry worn by superstitious mountain folk. They have no understanding of how our true power works, how it passes from generation to generation, how it grows stronger when it's suppressed rather than weaker. And what exactly is our true power? Serena asked, though part of her already suspected the answer would change everything. We are the guardians, child, the balance keepers between the human world and the wild places that still hold magic. Our bloodline was never meant to hide in shadows, never meant to run from those who fear us. His voice grew stronger, more commanding. We were meant to rule. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Rule, not survive, not hide, not find acceptance in a world that would never understand them. Rule as apex predators rule their territory, as alphas rule their packs, as forces of nature rule the wilderness itself. Serena felt something deep inside her respond to the concept with hungry enthusiasm. The part of her that had always felt constrained by human limitations, the part that had grown stronger with each transformation, the part that whispered that she was meant for more than a quiet life, treating sick animals in a small mountain village. This was the voice of her true nature, and it had been waiting her entire life for permission to emerge. The hunters expect us to run, Damien continued. They've positioned themselves to drive us out of the forest and into their killing ground in the valleys below. But what if we don't run? What if we hunt the hunters instead? That's suicide, Eleanor protested. There are 20 of them, and only 7 of us. 7 of you, Damien corrected, but not 7 alone. There are others scattered throughout these mountains, others who have been hiding and suppressing their gifts out of fear. With the right catalyst, the right leader, they could be awakened and united. His eyes fixed on Serena with an intensity that made her feel as if he could see straight through to her soul. Your mother was meant to be that leader before the Covenant murdered her. Her daughter could finish what she started. The weight of expectation settled over Serena like a physical thing. Everyone in the room was looking at her now, waiting for her decision. The pendant in Damien's hand pulsed with silver light, calling to the similar jewelry around her neck. She could feel the accumulated power of generations of her bloodline, the wisdom and strength of women who had faced similar choices in their own times. But she could also feel the trap closing around them, the hunters moving into position, the net drawing tighter with each passing hour. Whatever choice she made, people would die. The only question was whether those deaths would be meaningless, a final tragedy in a long campaign of genocide, or the beginning of something that would ensure their kind never again had to hide in shadows. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying with it scents that spoke of approaching snow and change. Winter was coming to the mountains in earnest, and with it would come the final confrontation between the old world and the new. Serena could feel destiny crystallizing around this moment, could sense the threads of possibility narrowing down to a single, irrevocable choice. She reached out and took the pendant from Damien's hand. The moment their skin touched, visions exploded behind her eyes. Generations of women who had carried this power, who had protected their communities, who had stood as bridges between civilization and wilderness. She saw her mother's final battle, saw the Covenant agents who had cornered her, saw the choice her mother had made to die fighting rather than submit to capture. She saw the hidden bloodlines scattered throughout the mountain communities, dormant gifts waiting for the right moment to awaken. She saw the future that could be built if someone was strong enough to claim it. When the visions cleared, she found herself standing taller, her silver-flecked eyes blazing with new confidence. The pendant had settled against her chest beside her mother's necklace, and she could feel the combined power of both artifacts singing in her blood. "We don't run," she said, her voice carrying a new authority that made even Adrian step back in surprise. "We don't hide, we hunt." Outside, storm clouds gathered above the forest canopy, and somewhere in the darkness, hunters prepared for a battle they couldn't imagine. But Serena Blackthorn, she claimed her true name now, discarding the human surname that had never truly belonged to her, was no longer the frightened young woman who had fled into the wilderness 3 months ago. She was something older and more dangerous, something that had been sleeping in her blood for 18 years. And now that she was awake, the mountains themselves would remember why her kind had once been feared by those who sought to tame the wild places of the world. The last resistance of her wild heart had become the first strike in a war that would reshape everything. The awakening began at midnight, under a moon so bright it turned the snow-covered forest into a landscape of silver and shadow. Serena stood at the center of the ancient stone circle, both pendants blazing against her chest as she called to every dormant bloodline within 50 miles. The power flowing through her was intoxicating and terrifying, like holding lightning in her bare hands while trying to direct its path. One by one they came. People she had known her entire life but never truly seen, emerging from the darkness with silver beginning to gleam in their eyes. Mrs. Corvina from the bakery, whose bread had always tasted slightly magical. Thomas the blacksmith, whose metalwork seemed to sing with its own voice. Even young Lucy from the schoolhouse, barely 16, but carrying the unmistakable signature of awakening power. "This is madness," whispered David, watching the growing circle of newly awakened pack members. "Half of these people don't even know what they are. They'll get themselves killed." "They'll get themselves killed anyway if we do nothing," Serena replied, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. The combined power of her mother's and grandmother's pendants was changing her, making her more than she had ever imagined possible. At least this way, they die fighting for something instead of being hunted down one by one. Adrian moved closer, his face troubled by changes he could see in her but didn't understand. Serena, you're different. Since you took that second pendant, you're becoming something else. She turned to face him, and he stepped back involuntarily. Her eyes held depths of silver that seemed to reflect starlight, and when she smiled, he caught a glimpse of teeth that were sharper than they should be. I'm becoming what I was always meant to be, what my mother would have become if the Covenant hadn't murdered her first. And what exactly is that? Before she could answer, Elena's warning howl echoed through the forest. The hunters had begun their final approach, moving through the trees with military precision despite the difficult terrain. Serena could sense them now, 23 humans armed with silver weapons and one other presence that made her growl low in her throat. "The traitor," she said, focusing on that familiar yet wrong scent that Elena had detected earlier. "I can smell them now. Someone who carries our blood but has turned against their own nature." Damien emerged from the shadows where he had been observing the awakening process. "That would be your cousin, Helena, your mother's sister's daughter, captured and broken by the Covenant when she was barely older than you are now." The name hit Serena like a physical blow. Helena. She had dreamed that name sometimes. Vague childhood memories of playing with another little girl who could make flowers bloom with her touch. A playmate who had vanished one day, leaving behind only her grandmother's tears and hushed whispers about tragedy befalling distant family. "They didn't kill her," Damien continued, his voice heavy with old grief. "They did something worse. They convinced her that our nature is evil, that we're parasites feeding on human society. They turned her into their perfect weapon, someone who understands our abilities intimately and uses that knowledge to help them destroy us." "Can she be saved?" Adrian asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Not anymore. The Covenant's conditioning runs too deep, reinforced by 18 years of believing she's doing righteous work." Damien's expression hardened. "She's here to kill Serena specifically. They told her that eliminating the last of the primary bloodline will break the awakening process and return the others to dormancy." Serena felt the truth of it in her bones. Helena wasn't just another hunter. She was the key to the Covenant's entire strategy. They had spent nearly 2 decades breaking and reshaping her cousin into the perfect assassin, someone who could get close enough to strike before Serena's instincts recognized the danger. "Then we make sure she never gets the chance," Serena said, power crackling around her like visible heat. "Elena, take half our people and hit their eastern flank. Make them think that's our main force. Adrian, you and David create chaos on the western approach. Draw their attention while I deal with the real threat." "You're not facing her alone," Adrian protested, but Serena silenced him with a look that carried absolute authority. "Yes, I am. This is family business, and it ends tonight." The battle erupted across the forest with shocking suddenness. Silver bullets carved through the darkness, answered by howls that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Serena's newly awakened pack moved through the trees like living shadows, their inexperience offset by raw fury and the home ground advantage. She felt each of them through the pack bond that her power had created, their emotions and injuries flowing through her consciousness like tributaries feeding a river. Mrs. Corvina fell first, silver burning through her chest before she could complete her transformation. Her death hit Serena like a personal wound, but she channeled the pain into rage that made her pendant flare with blinding intensity. The baker had lived 63 years without knowing her true nature, only to die minutes after discovering it. The injustice of that loss fueled something primal in Serena's core. Through the chaos of battle, Helena approached with the patience of a predator who has studied her prey for years. Serena sensed her cousin long before she appeared at the edge of the stone circle, moving with fluid grace that spoke of training far beyond what their bloodline naturally provided. The Covenant had enhanced her somehow, twisted her gifts into something harder and colder than nature intended. "Hello, cousin," Helena said, stepping into the moonlight. She was beautiful in the way that dangerous things often are, with platinum blonde hair and eyes that should have held silver, but instead gleamed with the flat coldness of polished steel. "You look just like Aunt Miranda did the night I helped them hunt her down." The casual confession of betrayal hit harder than any physical blow could have. "You were there. You helped them kill my mother. I helped them eliminate a threat to human civilization." Helena's voice carried no emotion, no recognition of the family bond that should have connected them. "Just as I'm going to eliminate you." She moved with inhuman speed, silver blade flashing in an arc designed to separate Serena's head from her shoulders. But the combined power of both pendants had changed Serena in ways that even she didn't fully understand yet. Time seemed to slow around her, Helena's attack becoming predictable and easy to counter. Serena caught her cousin's wrist in mid-strike, her grip strong enough to crack bone. "You're still family," she said desperately. "Whatever they did to you, whatever they made you believe, we can fix it. We can bring you back." For just a moment, something flickered in Helena's metallic eyes. A shadow of the little girl who had once helped Serena catch fireflies in mason jars, who had cried when her flowers wilted, who had promised they would be sisters forever. But then the conditioning reasserted itself, and Helena's free hand drove a silver dagger towards Serena's heart. The blade met the combined pendants and shattered against their combined power. Silver fragments scattered like stars, and the backlash sent Helena flying backward into the stone circle's perimeter. She hit the ancient rock with a sound like breaking bells, her enhanced body unable to withstand the recoil from attacking something protected by generations of accumulated power. "Impossible," Helena gasped, silver blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. "Nothing can withstand pure silver forged in Covenant fires." "You're right," Serena said sadly, kneeling beside her dying cousin. "Nothing human can withstand it. But I'm not human anymore, am I? And neither were you before they broke you." Helena's eyes began to clear as her life faded, the Covenant's conditioning losing its grip as her enhanced metabolism started to fail. "Serena, what happened to me? I remember playing in the garden and then darkness, so much darkness." "They stole you from us," Serena whispered, taking her cousin's hand despite the silver burns it caused. "They made you forget who you were, made you into a weapon against your own family. But you're free now. You're home." "I'm sorry," Helena breathed, her voice fading to nothing. "I'm so sorry I couldn't fight them. Tell my mother. Tell her I remembered the flowers at the end." She died as the first snow of winter began to fall, her body dissolving into silver light that flowed into Serena's pendants like a river returning to its source. The power transfer was overwhelming, generations of stolen strength and knowledge flooding back to where it belonged. Serena felt her cousin's memories, saw the years of torture and conditioning that had broken a bright, loving child into a remorseless killer. The rage that filled her then was beyond anything human emotion could contain. It was the fury of the wild places that had been tamed, of the ancient ways that had been forgotten, of every member of her bloodline who had died because others feared what they didn't understand. Power erupted from her in waves that made the very air shimmer, and across the forest every Covenant hunter suddenly found themselves facing something far more dangerous than they had expected. She rose from her cousin's fading light, transformed again, no longer entirely the young woman who had discovered her heritage in a dusty attic. Her eyes blazed with silver fire, her hair moved in winds that touched nothing else, and when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of storm systems and avalanches. "Enough," she said, and the word echoed through the mountains like thunder. The battle stopped. Every fighter, human and supernatural alike, turned toward the stone circle where she stood, wreathed in power that made the very air around her sing with tension. Even the wind fell silent, as if the world itself was holding its breath. "For 18 years you've hunted us," she called to the surviving Covenant agents. "For generations you've murdered children and called it righteous work. You've broken our families, stolen our memories, turned us against each other, and convinced yourselves that genocide is justice." Marcus Thorne emerged from behind a cluster of hunters, his face pale but defiant. "Your abominations, threats to the natural order that must be eliminated for the good of humanity." "The natural order?" Serena laughed, and the sound held winter winds and wolf songs. "We are the natural order. We've been the guardians of the balance between civilization and wilderness since before your ancestors learned to make fire. You fear us because deep down, you know you're the invaders in this world." Power flowed out from her in expanding circles, touching each member of her pack and amplifying their abilities beyond anything they had thought possible. Thomas the blacksmith's hands began to glow with forge fire. Lucy's touch made frozen flowers bloom in the snow. Even the injured found their wounds healing with supernatural speed. "This is your choice," Serena continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the forest. "Accept that we have a right to exist, that our children deserve to grow up knowing their heritage, that the wild places of this world need guardians who understand them. Or continue your campaign of extermination and discover what happens when the natural order decides to defend itself." Several of the hunters lowered their weapons, uncertainty replacing conviction in their eyes. But Marcus Thorne raised his rifle with hands that shook from more than cold. "Never," he snarled. "I've seen what you become when you're allowed to grow powerful. I've seen the chaos you bring, the laws you break, the fear you spread. Better a world without magic than a world ruled by monsters." "Then you've chosen poorly," Serena said with genuine sadness. The power that erupted from her then was not violence, but transformation. Every plant in the forest began to grow at impossible speed, vines and roots erupting from the ground to entangle the hunters who had chosen to continue their war. The silver weapons that had seemed so deadly dissolved like ice in summer heat, their artificial purity unable to withstand contact with the raw force of nature unleashed. Marcus Thorne found himself wrapped in thorny vines that held him suspended above the ground, his rifle crumbling to dust in his hands. "This is exactly what I feared," he gasped. "This is why you all have to die." "No," Serena replied, approaching him with steps that left flowers blooming in the snow. "This is what happens when you force the Guardians to become something other than what we were meant to be. We should have been partners, Marcus. Your people building and creating, ours maintaining the balance that keeps the world stable. Instead, you chose fear over understanding, genocide over cooperation." She reached up to touch his face with gentle fingers, and for a moment, his expression softened as he glimpsed memories that weren't his own. Visions of the world as it could be, where supernatural and human communities worked together, where the ancient wisdom of her people guided and protected rather than ruled. "It's not too late," she whispered. "It never has to be too late." Marcus closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, something had changed. The fear was still there, but alongside it was a recognition of possibilities he had never allowed himself to consider. "What do you want from us?" "Peace," Serena said simply. "Coexistence, a chance for our children to grow up without having to choose between hiding what they are and being hunted for it." The vines released him, and he dropped to the snow-covered ground with legs that barely held his weight. Around the forest, other hunters were being released as well, their weapons dissolved, but their lives spared. The choice of what happened next lay with them. Adrian appeared at Serena's side, his eyes wide with awe and something that might have been concern. "What you did here, the power you showed, people are going to fear it." "Let them," she replied, exhaustion beginning to creep through the supernatural energy that had sustained her. Fear can be the beginning of respect if it's handled properly. She turned to address the survivors of both sides, her voice carrying clearly through the winter air. This forest is under our protection now. These mountains are our territory, but that doesn't mean we're your enemies. It means we're finally strong enough to be your equals. Marcus Thorne struggled to his feet, his face showing the internal battle between years of conditioning and the new understanding Serena had forced upon him. The Covenant won't accept this. They have resources beyond what you've seen tonight, agents embedded in governments around the world. This isn't over. No, Serena agreed, but it's a beginning, and sometimes that's enough. As dawn broke over the mountains, painting the snow-covered forest in shades of gold and rose, she felt the last of her old life falling away like autumn leaves. The frightened young woman who had hidden her nature was gone, replaced by something that belonged fully to neither human nor supernatural worlds, but bridged both. Her pack gathered around her, survivors of the battle, but also something more. The foundation of a new way of existing in a world that was finally beginning to change. They would face resistance, would endure setbacks and losses, would probably fight more battles before their right to exist was fully accepted. But they would face it together, as family, as guardians of the wild places that still held magic, in a world increasingly defined by those who had forgotten how to believe in anything beyond themselves. Serena Blackthorne stood among the ancient stones as the sun rose fully above the mountains, her silver-streaked hair catching the light, her eyes reflecting depths that held both human compassion and wild wisdom. She had found her place at last, not as monster or victim, not as ruler or subject, but as guardian of the balance between worlds that had been broken for far too long. The last resistance of her wild heart had become the first step toward a future where no child would have to choose between their nature and their safety. And that, she thought as power settled into new patterns around her transformed pack, was worth any price they had paid to achieve it. In the distance, church bells began to ring in the human settlements, calling people to morning services where they would pray to distant gods for protection from the very forces that had just chosen mercy over vengeance. But change was coming to the mountains, carried on winter winds that whispered of ancient promises finally being kept. The age of hiding was over. The age of balance had begun.